Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are new to this session or this room, my name is Harold Shurtleff, director for the John Birch Society in the Northeast and the Middle Atlantic states, and I live in the city of Boston, and I hope you don't hold that against me, but I don't blame you if you did. Anyway, before we begin our talk, I do want to suggest, or not suggest, but ask you to turn off your cell phones, or at least put them on vibrate. And this will be taped. The session will be taped, so please be sensitive to that. And there are some questions. There's a little survey, a little blue survey. If you'd like to fill it out after the talk and pass it to me or to Ryan Turner over here at the door. And anyway, our speaker is Mrs. Ann Turner of Salt Lake City, Utah. She is I guess the word veteran member, I don't want to say an old member, but a veteran member, because we have young veteran members of the John Birch Society, like Mrs. Turner, a young veteran member. She has 10 children. She is a section leader in the John Birch Society. She served as summer camp volunteer as well. And her talk is how to influence your legislature. Let's give her a nice warm hand.
Boy, he better be careful. Well, you know, when I saw that I was on the roster to speak, and I saw who was speaking also, I just thought, what are they thinking? Am I meeting a quota, being a female? And then no. But, you know, I had a lot of fun the last time we talked about this subject in here. It was just a couple of hours ago, and I didn't have Samuel Blumenfeld over there drawing the crowd away. I tell you, I wish I were over there. But anyway, we'll listen to him tomorrow. I'll get a chance to listen to him. One of the main things I want to leave with you before I even get started today is I want you to know, number one, how grateful I am that all of you, and I just was so overwhelmed when I saw us all gathered together at lunchtime. Wasn't that incredible? And I know that you're all from various parts of the country, and you've all come here in the hopes of learning something great and tremendous to take back to your chapters and your sections, and I really applaud you for being here, and I'm grateful to you for coming. The other thing is, most people, when you mention working with the legislature, they think, oh, you know, it's intimidating, I don't want to do this, I don't know how, and I'm afraid. And so I want you to know that I'm just me, a common housewife, okay, you know, got involved in this organization seriously about 15, 16 years ago. And if you had told me then that I would be standing here, you know, I wouldn't have believed it. So, it kind of grows, and you grow and you learn and you gain confidence as you do. So it's the doing that gives you the confidence. And there's really nothing to be afraid of. I mentioned to the last group, I said, you know, these legislators are really just like you and I. The only thing that distinguishes them is that somebody put them forward. They were successful in their business, or they were fairly outspoken in their community, and somebody walked up to them one day and said, you know, you really ought to run for the legislature. And they're kind of like, really? You think so? You think I get the votes? Heck yeah, you get the votes. And so then they get the notion and they run for the legislature. Now, that's in my state. I know in some states, some of the bigger states, it becomes a much more competitive thing to be part of the legislature. They're operating, 12 months out of the year, and they're getting a pretty good salary. But in our state, in most of the smaller states, they're not being given that much of a stipend. I mean, it's not really a financial incentive to be part of the legislature in our state. We're only in full regular session for 6 weeks out of the year, and the rest of the time is just special sessions and things like that. So most of the people in our state who run for the legislature, a lot of them don't have any clue what they're getting into. Okay, they have no idea. And they end up being elected, but like my dad used to say, and I like his expression, just remember one thing. They all put their pants on the same way, one leg at a time. Okay? So they're all just human beings. And so we don't want to really, it's not that you don't have a certain amount of respect for people who have accomplished things in their life and so forth, and you want to have that kind of respect. And of course, in approaching a legislator, you always want to be respectful in your speech and so forth. But in reality, we probably know a lot more than most of them. If the truth were told, we know a lot more about the issues. Well, The question may be asked, why is it important for us to try or attempt to pass resolutions in the legislature? What good is a resolution? And a lot of legislators have asked that same question. They say, this is a waste of my time. I have so many more important things to do. Why am I going to sit here and worry about something that is non-binding just to send some little statement to the federal government won't have any effect or any strength? Well, I disagree completely with that. First of all, as you will recall, there was a time in this country when our states were represented by our senators. And that was before the 17th Amendment. And during that time, the legislature would appoint the senators to represent the state at large. Well, we don't have that anymore. We don't have that kind of representation, and so we've lost some of our states' rights, you see. So now those same senators are answering to the constituency, special interest groups, just like the representatives are. There's really no difference, is there? Except that they're snootier because they think they're more powerful because they're a smaller body, okay? And in many respects, they are more powerful. I mean, But, and we've gotten stuck with a couple of senators in our state who've just been a lot of trouble for us. They've been a lot of trouble in our legislature, and so we have to kind of be careful and not let them know what we're doing. Because if they know in advance what we're doing, then they try to sabotage our efforts, you see. So we, if they're not going to represent us the way we want to be represented, and unfortunately, our congressmen have not been willing to represent us the way we want to be represented, and on most of the votes, they have been on the wrong side of the issue. So therefore, we're left with the ability to pass a resolution in our state legislature. And what does that do? That sends a message to the Congress of the United States and the President of the sense that the state of Utah is opposed to this, that, or the other, whichever issue it is. And that by itself may not make much of an impression. However, when we work together nationwide and we get a block of states all sending the same message, these politicians really want to have the public agree with them. It's really important to them to have us agree with them. They want us to say, good job. And yeah, we agree with all these trade agreements. And when we put up a fuss like that, they take notice. And it's apparent because the FTAA issue has kind of been put on the back burner. That's not to say they're not still moving forward in another direction or with something called something else, like the SPP or the Transatlantic Policy Network. There's always something that they're trying to push on us. But we have made an effect. One example, and the very first one that we really got involved with seriously, had to do with the CON-CON rescission resolution. Are all of you familiar with that? Okay. What happens is there is such a thing as an Article 5 convention that can be called by the consent of 2/3 of the states. Okay, it's kind of it's a second way to amend the Constitution. And so, if a state legislature decides, we want term limits, we want to get these guys out of here. We don't want them to be able to stay in Congress for 25 years or 24 years or whatever. Whatever they decide, or we want an amendment to balance the budget, or whatever they decide on, they can send a petition to the Congress of the United States to call for a constitutional convention for the purpose of amending the Constitution to that effect, to have term limits, to have whatever, balanced budget. Okay, these petitions are cumulative. So our state, for example, over a period of years, had over 10, 12 petitions for a constitutional convention. Okay, so this needs to be rescinded. If we don't rescind it, the next group of legislators, they don't know anything about it. They've never heard of it. And it just sits on the books, and we're registered as having called or put a petition in for a constitutional convention. Well, you get a few states doing that. Pretty soon it built up to the point where the John Birch Society became aware that we were 2 states short of having a constitutional convention. And they let us know. Well, we knew that there was a representative in our state who had been working for 10 years trying to pass a rescission resolution. But every time it would get through the House, it would get to the Senate, and anybody know Senator Orrin Hatch? Heard of him? We're blessed to have him in our state. Okay? So he would stand in the way of that. He would get a hold of the Senate, and he'd say, "Oh, what's the matter with you? You don't want to rescind that," and blah, 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 blah. And because he has power, as they perceive, and they want his influence on their other issues and so forth, then they would capitulate to his desires, and we could never get it through the Senate. Well, this representative who had done this over the years was not Birch, but he was a very good constitutionalist. He passed away. And I became acquainted with his daughter. And I told her, I said, it just bothered me. I started thinking about it, and I thought, why doesn't the Birch Society get behind this movement? We need to do something. Maybe we can finally get this thing passed. So little did I know that other parts of the state, there were individuals having the same little tickling feeling, And you know what that is? That's God trying to speak to us, okay? And when you get those kind of thoughts and impressions, please pay attention, because, that's the way that God works, in my opinion. He gives us thoughts and impressions, and we need to act on it. So I called our coordinator, and somebody else called the coordinator. He said, I've been thinking the same thing. I've been feeling the same way. Oh, this is great. Let's do it. We know this is what we need to do, because we're dangerously close to a convention which could not be contained to one or two items. And we've never had a convention since the original convention, so we know that we would end up with a completely different form of government. I mean, face it. They're trying to do it anyway. So what we did was we found a representative. He was brand new. He'd been in for 2 weeks, okay? Poor guy. He didn't know what was coming. But anyway, it's really popular for these new representatives to get some issues that will pass. And if they can get an issue that will pass, well, that makes them look good. They're doing something right, and if they don't do something, then they probably won't get reelected. So he was kind of looking around, what can I do, this time around? I just got elected and so forth. Well, we happened to have a very strong member living in his district, so we asked her if she would be kind enough to go approach him and ask him if he'll do this. And we had the resolution drawn up and so forth. Well, she got on her knees and said a prayer, oh, Lord, because she was scared, She didn't know how to approach this guy. He's a big, politician. Well, she went to his door, and she talked to him, found out he was really a very nice man. He was a humble man, a Democrat, okay? He was in the minority, in our state. That's the minority party. And she said, look this over. Are you aware that we were going to have a constitutional convention if 2 more states joined in this call? And he said, no, I had no idea. This is a terrible thing. And he said, well, let me look at it, and I'll let you know tomorrow. So she got home all excited, and she called me and says, well, we got to do something. So we typed up a citizens alert, okay? And we listed some things that they didn't know about this whole con thing. So let's just flood his neighborhood. So we flood his neighborhood with all this literature, and we say, we want you to call Representative Fife and tell him that you want him to sponsor a resolution to rescind our call for a con. Well, guess what? His home was flooded with calls. He was shocked. He'd never done this before, and he was amazed. He said, wow, all these people are calling me. I guess I better do it. This is what my constituents want, right? And the ones who didn't call, well, they read the paper, and they were now better informed. So we'd accomplished 2 things. We'd informed some of his, the constituents in his area. Well, then we started circulating these throughout the state, okay? Well, we got our members busy calling and visiting, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of eye-to-eye contact. You need to get to know your representative. Honestly, those men who have put forward our issues have been people I have been in their office, as well as other members of the society who live in their districts. We have talked to them. We know about their business, what business they're in, what they do for a living when they're not in the legislature. We know about their position because we get on the Internet and we check their voting records. The Internet is an amazing thing. You can pull up live debates. You can hear how forceful someone is. You can find out who their opposition is. You can find out what the opposition arguments are. The Internet has been a wonderful blessing to us. And anybody throughout the state, whether they're near Salt Lake City or not, can be part of this. And they can watch live the proceedings on their computer of everything that's happening on the floor of the House or the Senate or even in committees. So they can know instantly, oh, look, there's our issue. It's coming up on the 3rd reading calendar, the 2nd reading calendar, whatever. So that's really neat because it keeps everyone kind of excited, and then we get this phoning going on. And did you know this? I mean, it's really neat. It gets everyone excited. So we told him, okay, you're going to do this. Well, we need to have a sponsor in the Senate. And we decided we're going to do them separately. We've learned that you cannot, if you do in our state, and your state may be different, it may call it a memorial, okay, instead of a resolution. You may have a little different procedure of how this works, but generally speaking, it's about the same. Now, between the House and the Senate, they go through a different series of committees and readings, and It's different in the Senate. So in order to know this, it's helpful to either know a legislator who can really help you get informed fast, someone who's seasoned, who knows something about it, or you get online and they have a whole list of instructions. This is how the legislature works, and they'll educate you on this online. And you can meet in your meetings, in your chapter meetings, so forth, and teach each other how it works, because we've missed some opportunities over the years and given God opportunities for miracles because we messed up, because we didn't know how things worked when we started. And every year we learn something new. You know, something, went back to rules. What do we do now? See, you mean they can make a motion and bring it out? And we learn these things. Well, he got a man who happened to be the minority leader in the Senate. And he said, yes, I'll do it. He's also a Democrat. So here we have two Democrats, okay, pushing our conservative constitutional position. And we just decided, it just really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what party they belong to. If they're willing to do what we need to have done, then that's okay. We'll work with them. So he gets up there, and he's all excited about it. And he feels pretty confident. And we go to committee, and we pack the room, okay? He's like, okay, this guy's never done this before. Well, he gets up, and he stumbles a little. He's nervous. And the committee, we've already notified the committee. We've already given them literature. We've already educated the committee. We've made phone calls. So they're pretty much prepared to pass it out, all right? Well, this issue had never passed before because of lack of understanding. Well, we're creating this understanding. Well, he messes up in his presentation. He doesn't get all the facts straight, and they just kind of chuckle, and they pass it out of committee anyway, okay, because he's green, and if you're, we'll help the guy out, all right? That was to our advantage. Anyway, so he gets into the floor of the House, and he's thinking, and it's traditional in almost any state that your congressional delegation will pay a visit to your legislature during session, and they grace them with their presence. Okay, so Senator Hatch decided to grace us with his presence. Well, we had forgotten to tell Senator Fife and warn him, do not let the cat out of the bag. I mean, do not tell Senator Hatch what we're doing here, or he will just squelch it, And we had kind of gotten a late start. Honestly, we were so late getting it filed, it was like the last day that you could file this, that we got it in under the wire, which in the end turned out to be a blessing because nobody knew about it in time to do anything or put up any substitutions or try to oppose us, okay? So he gets in there, and Senator Hatch comes in to speak to the House. And he's taking questions and answers, okay? And they're all feeling flattered, and they all want to push their button, and they all want to ask him questions. Well, Senator Fife thinks, I'm going to ask him about this con rescission resolution. And he reaches over. This is going to amaze you, okay? And he tries to push his button so that he can ask a question, and his finger slips off the button. And he didn't get a chance to ask it, so he tried it again. 3-4 times. His finger slipped off the button. And finally, it was too late, and he didn't get to ask his question. And he just sat there all dejected, He says, he told us this himself. He's like, I didn't get to ask him my question, darn. And then he was gone, okay, and we didn't know this, and we're just thinking, please, please. We knew he was on the floor, and we were just thinking, please don't anyone breathe a word about this. So he didn't find out. Well, we got to take it to a vote. It made it to the calendar, made it for a vote. And you know what? It passed. It passed in the House. Now it goes to the Senate, right? We get to the Senate. I'm sitting up there in the observation area, and we're watching them all, and we're thinking, I don't know, this is the part that's hard. This is the part where they never pass it. And we're all praying, please, please, God, this, we've done all we can. And that's the key. I believe that faith without works is dead. So we're exercising all this faith. But we also did the work. So we're just praying. It's coming up for a vote. Please, Lord, let this pass. Well, one of the senators got up and he says, this has been a pretty stormy issue over the years, and we've rejected this for the last 10 years, and I can't even believe it's here again. But maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. Let's just vote for this thing, and let's just get it done, shall we? And they all voted for it. And we're just sitting there going, woo! Well, anyway, that was our first victory. That was such a boost and such a shot in the arm that we were ready to take on anybody, anytime, anywhere. We're still kind of naive about the process, but we were determined by then, okay, we can succeed. We know now that we can do this. Well, the next issue that came along was the UN. Were we ambitious? Just slightly ambitious, okay? Timing was good. I mean, this is when President Bush is sending troops over to Iraq and saying that it's because of UN resolutions, and we're just mad, We're just, get us out of the UN. So we get the yard signs, we get a billboard up, we put some radio ads on, we're going to come on the television. I mean, it's expensive, but we're raising the money and we're doing all this, and everyone's so encouraged by our last victory that they're just thinking, there's no way we can lose, because this is righteous and we know we can win. Well, we got a representative, bless his heart. He's an older gentleman. He's a World War II veteran. And he was very respected in the House. He's known for his conservative position, but he was a seasoned representative. And I went to him. He used to be our representative, and then they realigned the districts. Of course, they do that to suit their needs or whatever. But anyway, so went and made a personal house call. Just had tons of literature. You know how the Birch sites had a lot of stuff on the UN for years. And we gave him stuff. We showed him a video. And we said, will you do this? Will you do this? Let's go out, fighting. And he says, I will. I will do this. Because I really, in my heart, I believe that the United Nations is extremely dangerous, evil organization. And so we said, this is just great. Okay, well, we're going to get support for you. And we did. And, so did that make a difference? Well, I'll tell you what a difference it made. We got ourselves put into Pravda. It passed the House. It passed the House a vote by one vote. It was the Speaker of the House who made that difference. He can break a tie. And we had worked on him, but we weren't comfortable. We felt like he was not to be trusted. Well, when it came right down to it, and he stood up and gave his presentation, it had gone through committees and so forth. We'd had the media there. We had our local news guy. We never get media. What's this about? Okay, and they're coming out here, and they grab me in the halls of the Capitol, and I'm just like, me? Oh, what? You want to talk to me? Yeah, would you please interview? Sure. What do you want to know? Well, you want to get out of the UN. I understand you think this war is being fought. Are you saying that the President of the United States has lied to us? I said, oh, yeah. Absolutely. And he says, so you're telling me, how these reporters are, they dig and dig until they get exactly what they want you to say, right? Well, I'm not used to this stuff. I mean, and so, and I'm going, oh man, I can't believe I'm on the hot seat like this. So you're telling me you think the President of the United States lied to the American people? And I says, yes, I do. And he says, then say it. Because he had the camera right there. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. The President of the United States has lied to the American people about this war. And it was on the nightly news. So, like I said the other day, I just painted a big target on my chest. It says, here, you come me now. But anyway, I left there wondering, was that a mistake? Should I have said that? Should I have called the President of the United States a liar? Well, within a week, everybody was calling him a liar. Okay, so I was vindicated. It was very good timing. If it had been any sooner, I might have been really in trouble. But you know what? It's okay. It brought attention. But I got to tell you, that reporter stood out on the steps of the Capitol building. And when he did that report, he had a UN flag. And he said, there is a group here at the Capitol today. I mean, this is the first time we've ever gotten media on anything we've done who say, we want out of the United Nations. And he wads up the UN flag and he throws it on the ground. Okay? And I'm like, wow, this is great. Well, he was making news, right? You have no idea how much trouble he got into. You have no idea. The next year, we had the FTAA issue. I walk up to him. His name is Rod Decker. I said, so, Rod, where's your camera? How come you're not covering our issue? He says, I want to talk to you. Turns and walks away. I said, are you afraid to talk to me? I mean, he was in so much trouble, okay? Because he really shouldn't have given us that kind of attention, especially the John Birch Society, okay? But anyway, we did pass it in the House. We did not get it through the Senate. And our senator was a neighbor of mine. I got to know his family very well. They homeschool. Isn't that amazing? They homeschool their kids. And he represented us in the Senate. But our Senate leadership, and this is something important for you to remember, you have to have the leadership. If you don't get somebody in the leadership, especially in the Senate, All they have to do is ignore the senator and refuse to recognize him for a motion, and just the Senate president has way, way too much power. Well, the Senate president didn't want this issue voted on on the floor of the Senate, and he refused to acknowledge our guy. So he used to work for he's an attorney, the senator that is representing us. Well, he had a blue beret, okay? And he told the Senate president, if you continue to ignore me, I'm going to wear this blue beret as silent protest on the floor of the Senate. And he did. He would pull that out and he'd stick it on his head and just sit there because he couldn't get his motion acknowledged. And everybody on the Senate floor got the message loud and clear that he was protesting that the Senate president would not acknowledge his motion to pull that out of rules and get it out for a vote. So, even though we didn't win in the Senate, it made a tremendous impression on that group. I don't think they'll ever forget that. And they got all the information that we sent to everyone else. So they were well informed. Well, guess what? It got the attention of the communist publication Pravda. You believe that? Little old Utah. And here we were. Well, I'm going to quote this to you and tell you what they said. Sorry, I'm old and I can't see. Can't see with them, can't see without them. It's horrible. It's just awful. Anyway, this is what they said. The John Birch Society initiated consideration of the U.S. withdrawal from the UN by Utah and Idaho Houses of Representatives, and lawmakers did not fail to live up to the society members' hope. At least one of Utah Chamber of Representatives supported the initiative. This process will likely pick up speed. I just wish it had. I mean, it did, to a point. The moment the John Birch Society has chosen is very good. The White House will for sure feel sympathy with public opinion. You see, they even know that public opinion matters, doesn't it? It is superfluous to forecast what will happen with the UN in case the U.S. withdraws from it. The organization will simply die a slow death. We could always hope. But, okay, so, that was kind of cool. We get attention from Pravda. The communists are watching us, and they can see what we've done in our little state. So don't ever think that what you're doing goes unnoticed. It does not go unnoticed. Well, one little thing I wanted to add. That senator who did our con-con rescission resolution, 2 weeks after the vote on that, and I'm kind of digressing here, he was killed in a biking accident. Now, I don't know if we would have had a senator willing to represent us on that rescission resolution if he hadn't done it. So you see, it was the right time, the right place, the right person. And I really firmly believe that was the hand of God helping us. Well, I'm not going to go into, let me see how much time I have. I won't go into all of Robert Welch's recommendations or suggestions, but he has in the Blue Book, how many of you have read the Blue Book? Be honest now. Okay, if you have not read that book, please do so and go back and review it. Because Robert Welch was nothing short of a genius, okay? We all know this, right? He outlined specific ways that we could influence politics and government in this country and influence our neighbors. And some of the ways that he listed, let me just read one quote, if I can find it here now. And this is something he said that really made me feel good, because sometimes we don't win. And if we don't win in a particular year, you know what? That's not bad. Sometimes that issue needs to be kept in everybody's mind for another year. Sometimes just winning and then putting it on a back shelf, okay, we sent the resolution, now we're not going to think about it anymore. Sometimes that's not the best thing. So the reason we do resolutions is not always, it's twofold. It's to educate, it's to activate your members, help them have some kind of a success they can own. That's really important. We have to feel like we're accomplishing something, and that is a tremendous accomplishment in the minds of the members. I mean, it is in my mind. But he says here this is page 63 of the Blue Book, it says, we're not tossing a coin which either comes down win or lose, that every effort we undertake and every battle we fight, even if we lose it, and every sacrifice we make is cumulative. Every bit of dedication to the cause is worthwhile. I just love that attitude, that positive attitude. It is worthwhile. I totally agree with that statement. So anyway, these are some of the things he lists, and I'll just go through them briefly. Establish reading rooms. Well, in those days, reading rooms, we have book lending, but we also have JBS online bookstore now. So we've come a long way from the time that he first wrote the Blue Book. get recent history and current events into many hands. We do it through the internet. We do it through personal distribution. We do it with reprints. And we've used all these methods in our campaigns. Use radio to get the word out. Well, we've had talk radio forever, and talk radio is a great way to get the word out. We've had members get on, call in, interview. This is free publicity for our issue, so use the radio. Letter writing programs. We had a representative that we were so sick and tired of. Okay, he was not bad when he first got in, but after 24 years, I guarantee you, he had been totally corrupted. Okay, and we just so we started writing. He was getting on an average 100 letters a month. We had 5 chapters, all generating 20 letters on the various issues that were listed in the bulletin every single month. Guess what he did? He retired. He just couldn't handle that kind of accountability. That was way too much for him. Anyway, he wanted carte blanche, and he didn't have it anymore. So organize ad hoc committees. We've done that on almost every issue. If you don't have a committee, for one thing, you can use a committee letterhead to send to your legislators who may not read the material if it says blatantly John Birch Society. But if it says committee to blah, 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 whatever it is, then they think, oh, this is a group of people that want me to do something. I'm going to read this. Of course, the Birch Society information is clearly printed on all of our literature if they really want to know where it comes from. Okay? Shock the American people with articles. I think that's pretty easy to do these days. DVDs, etc. We've been using Meetup to really do our recruiting in our area. And if you haven't gotten online and learned how to do Meetup, get somebody who's competent in your chapter who knows how to do this, and have them teach your chapter members how to use the computer. I mean, seriously, we're going to be left in the dust if we don't learn some of these things. Have Speakers Bureau presentations. When we did the UN issue, guess who we brought into town? I don't know if any of you remember this or know about it. We brought Congressman Ron Paul. We got this huge brainstorm with, let's get Congressman Ron Paul. And everyone's like, I don't know if he'll come, So I called the Washington office. He said, I'll come. Free. I'll come. I'll be happy to come speak to your group. I got so excited, And that's Brush Fires of Freedom that now can purchase. That's him speaking in Salt Lake City. We know what he did. He came, and just so interesting. They have, the LDS Church has Temple Square. They like to do tours. They have people they assign to do tours for VIPs. Okay, VIP hosting is what it's called. Guess who his host was? Former Congressman Norman Shumway from California. And he's a host at Temple Square. So I call the secretary of Congressman Paul. I says, you know what, while you're in Salt Lake, maybe he'd like to, visit with Congressman Shumway. And it turns out that they were both really pretty much on the same page. They were friendly with each other. So we had lunch together with him. We took Congressman Paul up to the Capitol. We had him go to the caucuses. They always have caucuses around lunchtime every day that they're in session. And he went and he spoke to the caucuses in the Senate and in the House and pushed for passage of the UN resolution. Of course, still didn't make it through the Senate, okay. And then that evening, we had him speak at a hotel. We had more than 600 in attendance, standing room only. I mean, it was just an amazing turnout. And what a boost that was for our society, what a boost that was for the chapters who had helped sponsor this. It was an amazing thing. So Speakers Bureau events that are focused on that issue are really important. Am I doing okay? Okay. So I'll talk just for a minute about our FTAA resolution. And, of course, we've passed the SBP also, NAU resolutions. But just to show you the kind of miracles that can occur, we had on the SBP, it's actually the SBP resolution, the FTAA resolution, we found out that we had a Senate minority leader he's a Democrat, okay? He's head of the AFL-CIO. He sits on the Federal Reserve Board, okay? And we said, let's go after him. So we called him up, said, we got an issue we think you're interested in. Well, we knew he would be interested in it because the unions don't like these trade agreements. They're losing jobs to outsourcing, and it's just a real pain for them. And so we went in with a video. We sat in his office. Just the nicest guy in the world. And do you know what? He ended up representing us in the Senate. He ended up helping us pass the FTAA resolution. I mean, it was pretty amazing. What strange bedfellows, huh? But we did learn one thing. You don't want to prejudge You want to give them a chance because, amazingly, some of these liberals are, they're really on the right side of some issues. And I say, I don't care, as long as you're willing to help us push our resolution. So we got him to do that. He has since passed away. All the good ones we can work with are leaving. But anyway, we started on this SBP resolution. Well, we didn't make it through the first time, and Representative Sandstrom was supposed to be here, and I don't know what has held him up, but he isn't here. But he's a representative that we had coached and helped, and we've had to go so far as to write their presentation in committee for them. We write it for them, we give them all the supporting information, we show up in mass, and it's really important that you do that. And then have a couple of key people to testify in committee, and have them stick to the point. And I don't care what religion you are, do not bring up religion in a committee meeting, okay? Do not do that. We had a gentleman, just the greatest guy in the world. He's an attorney, okay, but he's also extremely religious. He stood up and he just called them to repentance, okay? Well, it didn't make it through committee. And we kind of went, oh, dear, dear, dear. So our coordinator found out about it. He got a hold of him and he says, you know what, I have so much respect for you. Don't ever do that again. But he said, here's what I'd like you to do. I would like for you, as a retired attorney, to write to the President of the Senate, who's also an attorney, and you state your case as if you were in a court of law. And I want you to take the time between now and the next session. I want you to do that for me. And he said, I will. I'll do that. And he did, along with everybody else in the society, because we could see then we would never get it through the Senate if we didn't have Senate leadership. Well, everybody told me you can't trust our Senate president because he'll tell you one thing and he'll do another. And, he's just a typical politician, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a good thing we didn't listen too much to that, or we would have been discouraged and not even tried. So we went ahead and tried. We have a chapter leader in Salt Lake who is from England originally, Kay Garson. She decided, you know what, the real face of the EU has come into my hands, and by George, he is going to see this. So she wrote him a letter, and she said, I just want you to know that I'm a citizen of the United States, but I was born in Great Britain, and I understand and know what the EU has done to that country and to those countries of Europe. And I'm telling you, the SPP is just building a way toward a North American Union just like the EU. And she sent him that. Well, he sent back a letter and says, I've come to the conclusion that the SPP is extremely bad for this country. I've been receiving information. I've been doing some personal research. And your video has just confirmed what I have decided, and that is that I want to see an SPP resolution brought before the Senate this year. And I'm going to ask you to make sure it's done early in the session so there's plenty of time to get it out on the floor of the House or of the Senate. And we just went, oh my goodness, I wonder if he's going to really do this. This is amazing. So who did we get? Senator Fife. He ran for the Senate, and he won. I couldn't even believe it. This guy won. 3 minutes. Well, we got him up there. We got the thing through the House. It passed the House again. Sandstrom did it. It failed the first year. The second year, he got it through before I even knew it had happened. I didn't even have a chance to call him and say, are you going to do that resolution again? He had it done and passed within the first week of session. We had cultivated understanding with this representative to the point where he acted on his own, and we just didn't have to work and push. So we have Senator Fife up there, and now it's in the Senate. And he's sitting there, and it didn't make it on the board in time, and it's out in rules. They'd cleaned the board off, which they do at the end of session, and you have to prioritize to get them back. And we're thinking, oh, man, we're not going to get it through the Senate after all that. I can't believe it. And all of a sudden, besides miracles that happened in the committee, all of a sudden, Senator Valentine, the Senate president, he's sitting up in his very, high and mighty position, and he says, Senator Fife, yeah? Would you please be kind enough to make a motion to have SR3 brought out of rules and placed on the third reading calendar? He had to coach him and tell him what to do. And Senator Fife goes, yes. And he said, would you do that, please? I make a motion, Well, when the Senate president tells him to do it, the whole Senate's going to approve the motion, right? Because they don't want to offend the president because he might stop their legislation. Okay. So here he is. He brings it out. He gets put on the third reading calendar. I'm dying. It's down 60-some. It's the last day. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. I just said, I'm not going to drive to Salt Lake because, it's not going to happen. And I wanted to be there for the victory, but, it's too far down on the list. Well, Kay, bless her heart. She gets up. She says, that does it. We've done all we can. I'm having a prayer. She goes into her little prayer closet. She gets on her knees and says, Lord, we've done all we can possibly do. Please help us get this up for a vote and passed. She got up from her knees. She checked her internet, got on the reading calendar's right in front of her. It was floating up like cream on milk. And these resolutions ahead of it were just dropping off. Oh, this one's tabled. Oh, this one's got an amendment. No, we're not going to do this yet. This needs more discussion. It got voted on. I called her and said, Kay, I'm not going down to Salt Lake. It's just not going to make it. She said, Ann, it's been voted on. It's passed. A miracle has occurred. So, ladies and gentlemen, miracles do occur. This is the most exciting part of birching. This is the kind of thing that really gets everyone's blood pumping and excited. So I encourage you to have your chapters and your sections work together to get some of these resolutions passed. They do matter. The Congress of the United States, when a block of states does this, they do pay attention. Thank you very much.